What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat, live on Cheesehead TV, coming to you wherever you are on the internet. Thanks so much for joining me. It's 5 p.m. Eastern. That means it's time to chat about your Packers on a Tuesday. They're off day in the building, but that doesn't mean there ain't stuff to talk about. Lots of people joining us already on the chat. I love Basim starting us off with, why do people want to make the playoffs with this team? Why do you not want to make the playoffs? I get that the idea being they haven't played very well, they've gone long stretches without looking very good or getting many wins, etc. But look, you get in the dance, anything can happen. Aaron Rodgers could get hot and start playing out of his mind, and all of a sudden they go on a run, and holy cow, all of a sudden they're on the doorstep. Maybe they even get to the Super Bowl. Do I think that's going to happen? Hell no. Could it? Sure. Of course it can. It's the NFL, any given Sunday, including this Sunday in Chicago. A tall order, to say the least, going down to Chicago, playing a very good Bears team. But it is Bears-Packers. Those games are always tough. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes very close, tough games. I don't think this one will be any different. But yeah, I mean, why do you root for a team if you don't want success for that team? That just makes no sense to me. Hey, Nags, thanks for all the great content. Much appreciated. Ryan, thank you for saying so. In a world where my Twitter feed is usually just filled with people spewing hate, that's nice to read. Thanks, buddy. John DiFilippo, next head coach. Well, they can certainly interview him now after he was fired today. Mike Zimmer throwing yet somebody else under a bus. I know that was never really a good fit. Zimmer definitely seemed to want a much more buttoned-up offense. DiFilippo really wanted to put the ball in the air. Didn't seem those minds could ever meet. Really interesting that they paid Kirk Cousins all that money and couldn't make it work. We'll see what the future holds both for DiFilippo and for the Vikings in general. As for his possible candidacy in Green Bay, I have no idea what Mark Murphy thought of the guy, but if he does like him, he certainly has an opportunity to talk to him now. I doubt that's the play, but you never know. You know it's Cheesehead TV time when you get 8 alerts to watch Nagler. That's right, Tony. We are wherever you are on the internet. We used to be exclusive this, and we do this here and that there. No. It's a new day, a new dawn. People are everywhere on the internet, and they very rarely like to crossbreed their experience. So wherever you are, that's where we're going to come. We're going to find you. What do we got here? Packers will beat the Bears. I certainly hope so. It's a tall order, tall task, certainly possible. How in the world do we score and go against this incredible Bears defense? Mark, that is an excellent question. That is something that they will undoubtedly be working on all week long. To me, you got to ride Aaron Jones in this situation, and not necessarily, quote unquote, running the football, but getting the ball in his hands is going to be paramount, and getting the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands as quickly as possible. And now you're going to take some losses, you're going to take some 3-and-outs. This Bears defense is no joke, and moving the football will be a tall order. But to me, it's much more about getting the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands as soon as possible, more than anything else. Any plays that worked week one that we might try to go back to in Chicago? Well, definitely not the deep shot up the sideline to Geronimo Allison, since he won't be playing. And I doubt they can replicate the big 75-yard touchdown to Randall Cobb. But to me, the big thing that you can take away from that week one game is the success they had in the second half after Aaron Rodgers came back, the way he played from the pocket. If you go back and you watch that tape, it's striking how much damage he is able to do while stationary, basically. He can't escape. He can't run in that game. And he does a lot of good work from the pocket. And I think now that his knee is much better, I think the temptation and the instinct will be there to try and escape if he doesn't see things initially. But to me, it's if I'm Joe Philbin, I'm A, like I said, getting the ball out of his hands quickly, and B, if I do go to a drop back game or if I do run stuff out of the shotgun and give him some options, some progressions, etc., I hammer home all week. This is a game you have to play from the pocket. If it's not there, hit your check down. More than anything else, I think that's what keyed that turnaround in the fourth quarter against the Bears in week one. Rodgers stay whipping the Bears' ass, so this week should be no different. You agree, Nags? Julian, I don't think it's quite that easy, but it's, he's certainly had success against them. No question about it. But it's a new day, new dawn, new situation. It's a much better Bears team than Rodgers has been whipping up on for the last 8 years. That said, I think part of it will be circumstance as far as what kind of game plan they have and who's available to them up front. Don't forget, last time they faced, they had Bulaga at right tackle. He may not be available this time, and you got to think they'll flip Mack over to take on Spriggs, which means they got to help him at least a little bit. That changes how you can play and what kind of personnel you use, etc. So there's a lot of variables there. Rodgers can have a good game, but this is a team that has shut down a lot of good quarterbacks this year. Mitch Trubisky has a lot of Rex Grossman in him. DeMario, I think that's fair. Since DeFilippo was fired, will this finally stop the DeFilippo to Packers rumors? I doubt it. Thoughts on Dable? Daniel, I saw Brett Favre mentioned him as a possibility. I know he's currently the offensive coordinator up there in Buffalo. I'd be surprised if he was a serious candidate. But again, only Mark Murphy and possibly Brian Gutekunst knows for sure who's a legitimate target at this point. Eric, that's very nice of you to say. I love you as well. Let's take a look over at Twitter and see what's going on over on the tweet machine. Sammy starts us off with, has Kyler Fackrell become a serviceable NFL starter? He seems up and down against the run, but more impactful than Nick Perry. I mean, numbers don't lie there as far as getting to the quarterback and causing disruption. Fackrell has been much better than Nick Perry when it comes to doing anything affecting the quarterback. Is he a serviceable NFL starter? It's interesting to see his sacks come in bunches. We saw that game in Buffalo where he had 3 of them in the second half, towards the end of the game. Didn't do much for a bit and then kind of lit it up for a few weeks and now has kind of disappeared again, though he's made some plays in coverage. I think he's held up okay in the run game. I don't think you want to go into next year saying we're set at outside linebacker because we have Kyler Fackrell. And don't forget, as I mentioned on Twitter earlier this afternoon, we don't know what kind of scheme they're going to be running next year. Now that Mike McCarthy is out the door, obviously they will be bringing in a new coaching staff, which means a new scheme, most likely. Now, is it 3-4? Will they need outside linebackers? Are they going to go to a 4-3? Will they need defensive ends and pretty much make Kyler Fackrell expendable? We'll see. So there's a lot to play out there. But I think Fackrell obviously has had his best season as a pro, and the future is bright, regardless of where he's playing. What is your opinion on Mitch Trubisky? I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's really young. I think he's prone to he's got some bad accuracy issues. I don't know exactly how you go about fixing those. He's still incredibly raw as far as number of reps and games played, just as a starter in general. Don't forget, he was barely a one-year starter coming out of college. He has not played a whole lot of football. So I think there's a lot of talent there, and I think Matt Nagy does an excellent job kind of utilizing his skill set. He's obviously really good with the ball in his hands, good as a running quarterback, so to speak. And he gives him some easy looks. It always sounds bad to say easy looks, some delineated looks as far as reading high to low, giving him kind of muddying the water, so to speak. But you saw on Sunday night, it doesn't take a lot for him to get off schedule. That throw at the end of the first half, the interception he threw, that's a brutal decision and a brutal throw. So there's still a lot to be learned there for Trubisky, but I think he long-term projects to a pretty decent starter in the NFL. I don't see him ever becoming a true kind of elite quarterback. But all of that said, he's been thrown into the fire real quickly. And, he could very well progress into something much more than we're seeing now. I think the tools are there. That's all down to him. And the one big thing that worries me is the accuracy, because you do wonder how they're going to fix that, how he improves there. What do you think about Chris Richard as a potential head coach? He coached the Legion of Boom, and I like the idea of him with Jair, King, and Jackson. Might be a prisoner of the moment with him shutting down the Saints last week, but thoughts? It's interesting that his star has begun to rise again because of the effectiveness Dallas's defense has had. Some of that is personnel. Some of that you have to think is coaching. Marinelli's still running the scheme, though. And why did Pete Carroll feel the need to move on from him? These are all things that obviously Gutekunst and Murphy would explore. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think it's definitely worth a phone call. Whether the Packers agree remains to be seen. What happens with medical strength, video staff, etc. with a new head coach? Really good question, Paul. Well, the video staff and all those people, the cut-ups and what have you, and the people who create the videos, They are all in-house Packers people, so they'll stick around. But as far as strength and conditioning, that's a hire for the head coach. So Mark Levat would either be retained or the new head coach would bring in his own guy and his own kind of set. Medical staff would remain. Dr. McKenzie, et cetera, that's under the purview of Gutekunst. And that I doubt that a change gets made there. Brett Hundley and Pete Carroll standing together last night on the sidelines. Epic gum chewing. Indeed. All right, let's go back over to the live chat, see what's going on. Did you read Andrew Brandt's piece when he mentioned that the Packers are likely targeting a college coach? Ryan, I did, and I get where Andrew is coming from. Obviously, I know Andrew really well. We're friends. I don't agree with him on this. I think I understand where he's coming from in regards to saying that he doesn't buy their explanation. Because rarely is an organization going to come out and give you the actual facts and truth about why they made a move. That said, I don't agree with his assessment and or his conclusion. I know he did write that they probably have their eye on someone they want to contact right away. I tend to think it's much more about Mark Murphy. It really feels like a much more emotional decision than that. That he saw just an absolutely awful performance against a really bad Arizona Cardinals team in the elements, a game they should have won going away. He saw a dispirited team, and I think, and he'll never admit this, and I'll never be able to, say it as a fact, but I will always believe that Murphy had seen enough and just acted emotionally and made the decision knowing he was going to fire Mike anyway at the end of the year and just decided to get a jump on things. Now, maybe he does have an eye on someone and he wanted to start making calls, et cetera. But, for a team that has been around for 100 seasons and never made that kind of move, it's a big jump for me to say that they had the target and they wanted to get out ahead of it. And especially after Mark Murphy has spoken often throughout his tenure about Mike and Ted being in the kind of situation before and being able to turn it around, et cetera, and letting the season play out, something he had mentioned many times. So to me, it has all the makings of a knee-jerk emotional reaction rather than a kind of calculated move. But again, we'll never know. Cobb and Clay. It's interesting. I mentioned Clay earlier on Twitter as an example of someone that is kind of in the balance as far as it really depends on what kind of scheme they're running next year. So until they have a staff in place and a scheme in place, I can't, if they end up going to a 4-3, I don't see them bringing Clay back. I don't know where he fits. I know people want to move him inside, so to speak, but I don't see him as an inside backer in a 4-3, a middle linebacker, if you will. So we'll see. As far as Randall Cobb, again, some of that is dependent on what the offensive system is that they're running. I believe that Randall would want one last bite at the apple, so to speak. He'll want to hit free agency. I think the Packers will be fine with that and tell him, look, if you get out there and you don't find a deal that you think is, to your liking, you're more than welcome back on a team-friendly number. That's just guesswork on my part, but that's my hunch. We'll see how it plays out. Hello from Denmark. What's up, Tobias? Thanks for joining us. We need Robert Tonyan to stretch the field this week. That would help big time. I would love Tonyan to get some more snaps, especially with Jimmy Graham struggling with his broken thumb, not exactly lighting it up from scrimmage. I tell you, I'm more than happy to get Bob Tonyan on the field. We'll see if Joe Philbin and company agree after what can only be described as a struggle fest from Graham on Sunday. Hell, dig up Vince Lombardi. Woo! Can Mark Murphy call coaches like Lincoln Riley while they are still in season? Well, Brandon, that's the interesting thing. They're not in season now. They're all waiting. It's the lead up to the bowl season. So right now, college coaches are fair game. And that was kind of what Andrew Brandt was getting at for the idea of trying to get out in front of this now, being able to call those college coaches. Jason Wilde believes that Joe Philbin has an 80% chance of being the next coach. Thoughts? No. Do you think McKenzie would have taken the interview to be the Packers GM last year? Really good question, Julian. I would have to think so. If he knew at that time when Gruden was coming on board, if they had fired him right there, I absolutely think he would have gotten a call and taken the interview. But obviously things didn't play out that way. I do think if there are openings around the NFL at the GM level, he'll interview for those. And if he doesn't latch on somewhere, doesn't land something, then I would think Gutekunst will welcome him back. But we'll see. A lot to play out there yet. Do you think Crosby is back next year? Tanner, really good question. I wish I had a definitive answer for you. I hem and haw on this one. I would tend to believe they'll try to move on. Now, there's something to be said for a guy who made those kicks in the cold on Sunday. That is a really tough gig, and it's something that Crosby does very well. But they are paying him a lot of money comparative to his peers, and he has noticeably taken a downturn this year as far as accuracy goes. Obviously, the debacle in Detroit stands out, but there have been a number of kicks where he would have been money years in the past, and just for whatever reason, whether it's the hold, the snap, his own doing, whatever, seems to be a little shakier these days. So I definitely think that conversation will be had this offseason. And if they see somebody in the draft that they like, or maybe someone gets cut that they like, maybe they make that move. But man, like I said, those kicks in the cold, those are tough, and those can be game deciders, and they can be, I mean, let's face it, late in the season in the NFC North, those can be like incredibly important kicks, say to win a division game in December. If you got a guy you know can do it and who delivers in those situations, man, I almost think that's worth the peace of mind. Pay him a little bit extra because you know he can make those kicks in those conditions. But again, it's a lot of coin for a kicker. So we'll see. J.K. Scott can still do better. I agree. He's a rookie. Let's see if he does. Bulaga moving on? Oof, good question. I would think so. We'll see where they land as far as free agency in the draft at the right tackle position. I don't think there's anybody on the roster right now that you feel comfortable with if they decide to indeed move on. But, I mean, yeah, we know they asked him to take a pay cut last offseason. He refused. That's got to be a precursor, you would think, to another conversation this offseason. I would believe so, but we'll see. No, we really will see. I mean, he has, for the most part, before this past week, he's been available. He's battled through a lot, but T.J. Lang battled through a lot, and he was shown the door. So we will see how that plays out. Bart Starr, next head coach. Do you think Ibrahim Campbell has a future on the Packers? Seth, he certainly has helped himself. I know they placed him on IR, and it's really unfortunate, but in the brief time he was on the field, he absolutely flashed, and I think he certainly warrants an invite back this summer. Who would you pick as head coach? AJ, I've been saying I would love Vic Fangio. I really like Freddie Kitchens, too, being the Cleveland offensive coordinator. And I know that's kind of prisoner of the moment, but I really like what I've seen from him. And it really seems like the team is responding to him. And I think he'd be fun working with Rodgers. Should the Packers target Landon Collins this offseason? It's a possibility. They should have the cap space to do so. They need someone at the safety spot. There's no doubt about it. So it's a possibility. Packers need to keep Pettin. He's done good things with a young and injured defense. Ryan, I agree. I love Pettin as a coach, but whoever they bring in will most likely have the option to either have him stick around or to bring in their own guy. We've talked about that a lot here on the chat. I love Pettin as a coach. I hope he gets an interview for head coach. I really do. But like I said, it's really going to depend on who ends up getting the hire. If it's an offensive guy, you got to think, Murphy will say you're more than welcome to keep Pettin on. He's under contract. It's not like he can go anywhere if they want to keep him around. Wisenhunt as next head coach. We talked about that a couple days ago, Patrick. I like him as a play caller. I don't know what kind of ties he might have to anybody in the building. I wouldn't hate it. It's a guy who's got some experience, definitely, NFL tested, etc. Doesn't excite me, but it ain't about being excited. And, I don't think a lot of people were excited when Mike McCarthy came on board. At least I don't remember a lot of excitement. A lot of people pointed to his one-year tenure in San Francisco. But, and he ended up doing great work for the Packers. So like I said, I wouldn't be averse to it. Estimated cap space more than previous years. Cody, they should have, depending on the moves that they make, you got to think with Clay Matthews, Randall Cobb, et cetera, coming off the books, maybe a cut or two here or there, they should be hovering around $40 million, I would think, maybe more than that. Actually, it could be like $50 million. But we'll see. There's a lot left to play out before we get to that conversation. Earl Thomas, despite the injury, and Landon Collins duo would be epic. Stefano, I agree, but you got to think Earl Thomas is going to land in Dallas. I mean, that seems like a foregone conclusion at this point, but who knows? You never know. Long shot, but what do you think of McDaniels as head coach and Lincoln Riley as OC quarterbacks coach? Riley sticks around for a year or two and takes off. It's possible, Reggie. I mean, if he's desperate to get into the NFL, I haven't heard that. I haven't read that anywhere, but I think he's awfully young to make that jump. He's built something really good in Oklahoma. I can't see what benefit he has. His name's already becoming hot. I don't think jumping to the Packers is really going to help him at all if it's not a head coach. But, you know, maybe. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazier things have happened in the NFL. Goodness knows. Signing Breeland should be a priority. I mean, I think he's absolutely made his case. There's no doubt about it. I would be surprised if they didn't try to bring him back. No doubt about that. I have a weird feeling Philbin will be our next head coach. Your thoughts, Spicy? If they beat the Bears, then we'll talk. If they lose to the Bears, I highly doubt it. All right, everybody. I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much for all your questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. Thank you so much for joining us. Like us on YouTube, or what is that? Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Tell your friends about us everywhere you go. Join our Patreon. There's a link in our YouTube channel. You can join us. Just $5 a month gets you patron status, which means you like what we do. You support this daily chat. You support Packer Transplants. Everything we do, including giving away a free t-shirt every week. So put yourself in that drawing. Thank you so much, everyone. One programming note. There will be no Packer Transplants tomorrow. We'll do another daily chat. Packer Transplants will be on Thursday afternoon. Same time at 5 o'clock, but Thursday will be Transplants. Tomorrow, another daily chat. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.